Andrew Berry has been making calls. That much is certain. The calls started the moment Rasheed Walker's signing with Carolina was confirmed, the moment the last realistic free agent solution to Cleveland's left tackle problem chose a different zip code and Berry had to recalibrate everything he had been planning for the next 40 days. And what the calls have produced, what the reporting from Heavy.com and Bleacher Report and Pro Football Rumors and every outlet connected to the Browns this week has been telling anyone paying attention, is a picture of an organization that is not finished, not by a long distance. The left tackle problem is real, but it has a solution with a name attached to it, Taylor Decker, and that name has been appearing in every Cleveland Browns offseason analysis written since March 6, 2026, with a frequency that suggests it is not speculation, but reporting. And behind the left tackle conversation, in the space that the wide receiver room has occupied in every honest analysis of this roster since Mike Evans chose San Francisco, there is another name, a name that the Jaguars general manager called fraudulent to discuss, a name that Adam Schefter said Jacksonville had denied completely, and a name that Bleacher Report's Mo Moton put in print on March 14, 2026, as the most realistic blockbuster trade the Cleveland Browns could execute before the April 23rd draft. Brian Thomas Jr., 23 years old, LSU product. The receiver who as a rookie in 2024 caught 87 passes for 1,282 yards and 10 touchdowns and became only the fourth player since 1970 to surpass 1,200 receiving yards and double-digit touchdowns in his first NFL season. The other three on that list are Randy Moss, Odell Beckham Jr., and Jamar Chase. That is the company Brian Thomas Jr. kept in his rookie year, and he is available. Maybe. Despite what Jacksonville's general manager is telling reporters, despite what Adam Schefter said on the Pat McAfee show, despite every public denial from every official Jaguars source, because as NFL trade rumors correctly noted on March 13th, very few players are untradeable for the right price, and the Cleveland Browns, with 2 first-round picks and a new head coach who needs a wide receiver and a young quarterback who needs a weapon, may have exactly the right price. This is the complete story of Taylor Decker, Brian Thomas Jr., and the 2 moves that could transform the Cleveland Browns from a team building towards something into a team that is actually ready to compete. Start with Taylor Decker, because his story, the 10 years in Detroit, the 140 career starts, the Pro Bowl selection, the shoulder injury, the contract dispute, the release request, is one of the more quietly extraordinary stories of offensive line loyalty in the modern NFL.
Taylor Joseph Decker was born February 21, 1993 in Vandalia, Ohio, a small city of approximately 15,000 people in Montgomery County, north of Dayton. He attended Wayne High School in Huber Heights, where the Warriors football program competed in the Greater Western Ohio Conference and where Decker developed into one of the most sought-after offensive lineman recruits in the state. He committed to Ohio State and spent 4 seasons with the Buckeyes from 2011 through 2014, developing into a consensus All-American and the program's most decorated offensive lineman of his era. At 6 feet 7 inches and 315 pounds, with the footwork and hand technique that Ohio State's offensive line program has produced at a remarkable rate for 3 decades, Decker was the consensus top offensive tackle in the 2016 NFL draft class. The Detroit Lions selected him 16th overall. Not a reach, not a projection, the 16th pick. A player who every scouting service had ranked as a top 20 talent. He arrived in Detroit in the summer of 2016 and never left. For 10 full seasons, through Jim Caldwell and Matt Patricia and Dan Campbell, through Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff, through rebuild years and contention years, and the 2023 NFC Championship game run that gave Detroit its closest brush with a Super Bowl appearance since the Barry Sanders era, Taylor Decker started 140 games at left tackle for the Detroit Lions. Decker started all 140 games he played for the franchise and earned a Pro Bowl nod in 2024. Yahoo Sports, 140 consecutive starts. Without missing a game he was healthy enough to play. The kind of durability and reliability that NFL franchises build around for exactly the reason the Lions did. Because finding a starting left tackle who shows up every week and protects the quarterback's blind side with competence and consistency is genuinely one of the hardest things in professional sports to do.
Decker was tied to a 3-year, $60 million deal that ran through the 2027 season. As our Detroit offseason outlook piece indicated, Decker was due a $1.5 million salary guarantee on March 15th. Decker's post reveals he requested this release. It sounds like the Lions were angling for a Decker pay cut, as the former first-round pick notes discussions were ongoing about his contract. Pro Football Network. He was due $18.2 million in 2026. The Lions wanted him to take less. Decker had spent 10 years never missing a start when healthy, never once asking the organization to pay him for games he was not able to play, never once creating drama, never once making the front office's job harder than it needed to be. And when they asked him to take a pay cut, he said no. He asked for his release. He wrote the goodbye post that every Detroit fan needed to read. He called it a beautiful 10 years going to war as a Lion. He said opting for a clean and amicable close, and he walked away from the only professional organization he had ever known because the organization he had given a decade of his career to decided his 32-year-old body was no longer worth the contract his 31-year-old body had signed. There seems to be a clear landing spot with the former Detroit Lions left tackle, the Cleveland Browns. Adding Decker to the mix would allow the Browns to get creative with the number 6 pick. Instead of taking offensive tackles like Spencer Fano or Francis Maiwagoa, they could use that selection to get a true wide receiver 1 in Carnell Tate, trade down, or maybe even go with the best player available. Bleacher Report. That is the specific appeal of the Decker signing for Cleveland. Not just that he solves the left tackle problem in isolation, but that he solves it in a way that cascades through the entire draft strategy. The Browns are currently projected by ESPN's Field Yates to take a left tackle at number 6 overall. If Decker signs with Cleveland, number 6 is free. And number 6, used on Carnell Tate from Ohio State, the Big Ten Receiver of the Year, the young playmaker who gives Shedeur Sanders the alpha target this offense desperately needs, transforms the entire complexion of the roster in a way that no left tackle at number 6 can accomplish. SpotTrack projects Decker's market value at approximately $21 million annually over a new 2-year contract. Decker makes most sense for the Browns if they plan to take the top wide receiver available at number 6 overall, likely Carnell Tate of Ohio State. The Browns also own picks numbers 24 and 39 and could look for a left tackle in either spot. $21 million per year. For 2 years, $42 million total. The Browns have approximately $26 million in cap space following the $17.8 million annual adjustment that arrived on Friday. They have Watson's dead money, yes. They have Jenkins and Johnson and Williams and Stahl on the books. But the specific combination of post-June 1st designations on the Njoku and Teller releases, the Watson restructure, and the unexpected cap adjustment has given Barry the financial flexibility to make one more significant move before the draft. And Decker, at $21 million per year on a 2-year bridge deal, protecting Shedeur Sanders' blindside while a rookie tackle is developed in the later rounds, is the move that makes every other move Barry has made this offseason make complete sense. A 2-year deal would allow the Browns to maintain line stability without overspending, and Decker lands on a team with playoff aspirations and a clear role. The only question is whether Decker, who is 32, who played through a shoulder injury for most of 2025, who spent a decade in Detroit and is now seeing for the first time what life on the open market looks like, wants to join a rebuilding team rather than a contender. That question does not have a confirmed answer yet, but every landing spot analysis written since his release has put Cleveland at or near the top. And the specific Ohio connection, Decker grew up in Vandalia, played college football at Ohio State, would be coming home in a very real geographic sense, is the kind of intangible that matters when a 32-year-old player is choosing where to spend what may be the final chapter of his career. Bleacher Report's Mo Moton wrote that the Browns desperately need help at wide receiver, with Jerry Jeudy leading the group, and may present a strong offer to acquire Thomas if he is available. He noted that Cleveland has 2 2026 first-round picks because of its deal with Jacksonville last year, and could offer one of 2 first-rounders for Thomas to upgrade their below-average receiver core. Sports Illustrated 1 first-round pick. For Brian Thomas Jr., the receiver who as a rookie joined Randy Moss and Odell Beckham and Jamar Chase as the only players since 1970 to post 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns in their first NFL season. The receiver who is 23 years old with his entire prime ahead of him. The receiver whose 2025 numbers, 48 catches, 707 yards, 2 touchdowns, were the product not of ability regression, but of a quarterback dealing with injuries, a new regime that had not drafted him, and a role that was reduced by the emergence of Parker Washington and the trade acquisition of Jakobi Meyers. The receiver who, placed in Todd Monken's offense with a mobile quarterback, a rebuilt offensive line, a blocking tight end designed to create run-pass conflict, and Jerry Jeudy on the other side drawing coverage, could be the player he was as a rookie and more. His full background deserves telling. Brian Thomas Jr. was born January 23, 2003 in Zachary, Louisiana. He grew up in the kind of Louisiana football culture that produces receivers at a rate that other states can only observe with envy. The same environment that produced Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Odell Beckham Jr. and Joe Burrow, and a lineage of offensive playmakers whose Louisiana roots connect back decades. He attended Zachary High School, where he developed into one of the most explosive wide receiver prospects in the Deep South. He committed to LSU, the program whose receiving legacy includes Chase and Beckham and Landry and hundreds of others, and spent 3 seasons in Baton Rouge developing the release, the route running, and the downfield acceleration that made him the 23rd.
And then 2025 happened. Thomas tied for second in the NFL with 10 drops, and his route running and separation prowess, touted by the previous regime, was not as evident. While Thomas encountered injuries, quarterback Trevor Lawrence established a better rapport with Parker Washington, and the Jaguars traded for Raiders wide receiver Jakobi Meyers in November. ESPN, 10 drops. The new regime that had not drafted him. Injuries that cost him 3 games and affected his performance in the ones he played. The trade for Meyers that shifted targets away from him. And a general manager who has made 10 trades since being hired, 5 of them involving wide receivers or draft picks to select wide receivers, who reportedly listened to calls about Thomas at the trade deadline before deciding to hold. The same general manager who is now saying no interest in disrupting the momentum. Very few players are untradeable for the right price. The Browns have 2 first-round picks. One of them came from Jacksonville in the deal that brought Travis Hunter to Cleveland last year. And the specific relationship between the Browns and Jaguars front offices, 2 trades executed last season, a familiarity with how each organization negotiates, is the foundation that makes the Brian Thomas Jr. conversation more than purely speculative. Here is the honest picture of where Cleveland stands right now on March 16, 2026. The offensive line is rebuilt at 4 of 5 positions. Left tackle remains open, with Taylor Decker as the most realistic free agent solution and the most likely outcome if Barry can structure a deal that works for a 32-year-old Ohio native with a connection to this state and a roster that gives him a legitimate chance to compete. The wide receiver room is the most significant remaining roster deficiency, with Jerry Jeudy as the only proven option and a depth chart behind him that ranked 31st in the NFL in passing yards last season.
Brian Thomas Jr. is the most realistic blockbuster trade target, with a price likely around one first-round pick that Barry can afford because he has two. Shedeur Sanders is the de facto starting quarterback with an asterisk that does not go away until training camp begins and the real competition takes place. And Todd Monken, 60 years old, one shot at this, 30 years of offensive expertise, is watching all of it with the specific urgency of a man who knows that the decisions made in the next 37 days will determine whether his first year as an NFL head coach is the beginning of something real or the first chapter of a story that ends faster than anyone planned. The power trio that this roster is building toward, Shedeur Sanders at quarterback, Brian Thomas Jr. as the alpha receiver, and Taylor Decker protecting the blind side, is not guaranteed. It is a target, a direction, the specific combination of pieces that makes the offensive vision Todd Monken has been describing make sense on paper and in practice. None of it is signed. None of it is confirmed. The Jaguars are denying, Decker's market is still forming, and the draft is 37 days away. But the calls are being made, the relationships are being leveraged, and Andrew Berry, the general manager who nobody in Cleveland applauds, who rebuilt an offensive line in 72 hours while the fan base was focused on the quarterback room, is sitting in his office in Berea with 2 first-round picks and $26 million in cap space and a head coach who needs him to make 2 more good decisions before April 23rd. He has made good decisions all offseason. The question is whether the next 2 are the ones that change everything. All reporting in this broadcast is sourced from Heavy.com by Max Dibble, Pro Football Rumors by Sam Robinson, Bleacher Report by Mo Moten, Sportscasting by Gia Nguyen, Yahoo Sports, CBS Sports, NFLTradeRumors.co, The Big Lead, Yardbarker, WGFX-FM Nashville, Detroit Jock City, ESPN's Adam Schefter on The Pat McAfee Show, SI.com's John Shipley, ESPN's Michael DeRocco, and official press conference statements from Jaguars GM James Gladstone on March 12, 2026. All contract figures are sourced from SpotTrack and Over the Cap. All information reflects confirmed reporting as of March 16, 2026.